Eli Carter had never expected a trip to another planet to feel so alien. Even though Earth had joined the interstellar community decades ago, stepping onto Zyphora was like walking into a dream that didn't quite belong to humans. Towering crystal spires reflected the twin suns in dazzling colors, casting rainbow patterns across the streets. Hovering vehicles glided silently above, and alien citizens moved with an elegance that made even the most confident humans feel clumsy. Eli adjusted his formal suit nervously, glancing around at the crowd that had gathered for the annual Zyphoran diplomatic gala. He had been chosen as a cultural ambassador because of his language skills and knowledge of human customs, but nothing in his training had prepared him for the sensation of being truly small in a room full of beings who could read emotions through touch, gesture, or even thought. Each Zyphoran present seemed to radiate confidence and intelligence, their forms graceful, their expressions almost flawless. Eli felt his heart beat faster, wondering how he, an ordinary human, could possibly make an impression. He moved toward a balcony overlooking the city's main square, hoping for a moment of quiet. The chatter below was alive with alien voices, harmonics and tones that made his ears ache if he focused too hard. He took a deep breath and let his gaze wander over the horizon, trying to calm his nerves. Then he saw her, Princess Lyra. She stood at the far end of the balcony, her form slender but commanding, her skin shimmering faintly under Zyphora's light. Her eyes, a striking shade of violet, seemed to see everything at once. And yet, when they fell on Eli, they lingered with curiosity rather than dismissal. Her presence was magnetic. It drew attention without effort, and Eli felt a flutter in his chest that he had never experienced before. He told himself to be professional. This was diplomacy. He was here to observe, to learn, and to represent humanity respectfully. Yet as he moved closer, his words caught in his throat. He had practiced greetings and phrases in Zyphoran, but nothing prepared him for the moment she smiled lightly and inclined her head. "Welcome, human," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, yet carried authority. "I am pleased you came." Eli bowed slightly, trying to suppress his nerves. "Thank you, Princess Lyra. It is an honor to be here." She stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. "You are not like the others," she said, almost as if speaking to herself. "Your presence feels different, honest." The words made Eli's chest tighten. He wanted to reply, to say something intelligent or witty, but his mind was blank. Instead, he let a small smile form. "I suppose humans are different," he said softly, almost too quietly for anyone else to hear. Lyra tilted her head and her eyes sparkled. "Different is interesting." Eli laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his neck. Then, before he could stop himself, words he hadn't planned slipped out. "I wish I could marry you," he whispered, barely audible, almost as if saying it aloud might break the spell of the moment. There was silence. Even the faint hum of hovercrafts seemed to pause. Eli's stomach dropped. He had made a mistake. He had crossed a line that humans were never supposed to cross with alien royalty. He expected scorn, anger, maybe even a psychic rebuke. Instead, Lyra turned fully toward him, her expression unreadable. She studied him for a long moment, and then a small, almost amused smile curved her lips. "Perhaps you could," she said. Eli's heart nearly stopped. His eyes widened, and he felt the world shift beneath his feet. The words echoed in his mind, refusing to make sense. She said yes, he thought, though she hadn't exactly said yes. She had said something far more intriguing, far more dangerous. She had said she considered it possible. The crowd around them murmured, noticing the interaction, and eyes turned to Eli. Some were shocked. Some were curious. Some, particularly the Zyphoran nobles, seemed outraged. Protocol had been broken. No human had ever spoken like this, and certainly no human had ever dared to speak so intimately to a princess. Lyra's gaze softened, but it remained direct. "Do you understand the meaning of what you just said?" she asked gently, her voice carrying just enough authority to command attention without raising it. Eli swallowed hard. I meant it as a wish, he said honestly. I didn't know what else to say. I wanted to tell you how I feel. Lyra's smile widened and she took a step closer. Honesty is rare among humans, Eli Carter, rare and valuable. He blinked in surprise. She knew his name. How could she know? Then he realized she had probably read his credentials as he entered. But still, the personal touch made him feel seen in a way he had never experienced. I don't know if I'm worthy, he admitted, his voice trembling slightly. You're a princess. You're extraordinary. I'm just a human from a small planet at the edge of the galaxy. How could I possibly? Lyra laughed softly, a sound like chimes in the wind. Worthiness is not measured by titles or planets, Eli. It is measured by heart, courage, and sometimes by audacity. Eli felt heat rise to his cheeks. He had always considered himself bold in small ways, but this audacity might just get him killed, or worse, humiliated in front of the entire interstellar community. Yet against all odds, Lyra's words seemed to lift a weight from his shoulders. She did not dismiss him. She acknowledged him. The gala continued around them, but the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Eli felt an unfamiliar mixture of fear, excitement, and hope. For the first time, he wondered if humans might truly belong in a galaxy filled with species who seemed far superior in every way. As the night progressed, Eli found himself invited to walk alongside Lyra through the grand gardens of the palace. The air was fragrant with alien blooms that glowed faintly under the moon's light. The paths were lined with crystal lanterns, and soft music floated through the air, harmonics from instruments Eli could not name. They spoke quietly, cautiously, sharing stories of their lives. Eli told her about Earth, about human creativity and resilience, about the endless curiosity that had driven them to explore the stars. Lyra spoke of Zyphora, of its history, of the expectations placed upon her as a princess, and of the loneliness that came with a life under constant scrutiny. Eli realized that behind the elegance, the power, and the intelligence, Lyra was as human as he was. She wanted connection, understanding, and someone who could see her as she truly was. At one point, a group of Zyphoran nobles approached, their expressions cold. They whispered among themselves, shooting glances at Eli. Eli's stomach knotted. He knew the whispers carried warnings: do not disgrace the princess. Do not overstep your place. Do not ruin everything. Lyra noticed his tension and placed a slender hand on his arm. The contact was light, reassuring, and entirely intentional. Do not fear them, she said quietly. They cannot see what I see. They cannot know the value of honesty, courage, and heart. Eli looked at her, feeling a surge of warmth and admiration. He wanted to tell her everything, to pour out his thoughts, to let her know that humans were more than what they seemed. But the words were stuck in his throat. Instead, he nodded, trusting her guidance, trusting the connection that had formed in such a brief, improbable moment. By the time they returned to the palace balcony, the stars had spread across the sky in breathtaking patterns. Twin moons glimmered above, and the city below sparkled like a sea of liquid light. Eli felt the enormity of the galaxy pressing against him, vast and infinite, yet somehow, at this moment, he felt centered, focused, and alive. Princess Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. Eli, she said softly, you have entered a world that will test you. You have dared to speak what no human has dared. You have intrigued me. That is not a small thing. Eli swallowed, his throat dry. I don't know what comes next, he admitted. I only know I want to be here. I want to learn. I want to understand you, to understand your world. Lyra's smile was gentle, almost approving. Then you have begun well. The rest is a journey we will walk together if you are brave enough to take it. Eli's heart raced. Brave enough. He did not know what lay ahead, but he knew one thing. This night had changed him. The whispers, the laughter, the subtle touches, and the daring words, they had opened a door to adventure, to challenge, to connection, and perhaps one day to love. As he watched Lyra walk back into the palace, surrounded by her guards and courtiers, Eli realized that the galaxy had just become far more dangerous, far more wondrous, and far more beautiful than he had ever imagined. And at the very center of it all was a princess who had seen him, not as a human at the edge of the galaxy, but as a being worthy of attention, respect, and perhaps something more. For the first time in his life, Eli Carter felt the weight of possibility pressing upon him. And he whispered once more quietly to himself, almost as a prayer, "I hope I am enough." The night ended with stars overhead and a quiet promise in the air. Eli did not yet know the trials, dangers, and wonders that awaited him on Zyphora. But he knew that his life had shifted irreversibly in one whispered sentence, a sentence that had dared to dream, dared to hope, and dared to reach across the stars to a princess who might just be willing to take the leap with him. The morning sun rose over Zyphora, casting long, glittering shadows across the palace grounds. Eli Carter woke in the guest chambers, heart still racing from the events of the previous night. He had barely slept, turning over the memory of Princess Lyra's words again and again. "Perhaps you could." The sentence lingered in his mind like a promise, yet it also carried weight he did not fully understand. Breakfast was served in the palace dining hall, where humans were rare and often treated as curiosities. Eli tried to act casual, though every Zyphoran eye seemed to follow him. The hall was a masterpiece of alien architecture, with crystal panels that glowed faintly and walls that seemed to pulse with life. The food was unfamiliar, some kind of translucent fruits that shimmered with light, and liquids that shifted color as they were poured. But Eli tried to focus on polite conversation, even as he fumbled with the utensils. Lyra appeared as if from nowhere, her presence commanding yet calm. She walked beside him to the table, her expression unreadable, though her violet eyes held that same spark of amusement and curiosity from last night. "Are you ready?" she asked softly. Eli blinked. "Ready for what?" Lyra smiled slightly. "To see Zyphora as it truly is, to learn what humans rarely understand about us, to test yourself." He swallowed nervously. "Test myself," she nodded. "Yes, you dared to speak what no human dared. That is bravery, but bravery alone is not enough. If you wish to be close to me, to understand this world, you must prove your heart, your mind, and your courage." Eli's stomach tightened. He had expected diplomacy to be complicated, but this was something entirely different. Still, he nodded. "I will do my best." Lyra's smile widened. "Good, follow me." They left the dining hall, walking through corridors that twisted and curved impossibly, like the palace itself was alive. Eventually, they arrived at a courtyard filled with glowing plants and a series of strange structures that looked part puzzle, part sculpture. Zyphoran children ran through the area, laughing with a sound that resonated in Eli's chest, joyful and musical. "This is the first test," Lyra said. "You must solve the puzzle of mirrors." Eli's brow furrowed. "Puzzle of mirrors," Lyra nodded. "Many believe it is impossible for humans to complete. It requires creativity, observation, and trust. Only those who can see beyond the obvious succeed." Eli looked at the tall, reflective panels arranged in a maze. They shifted and changed as he moved, reflecting not only light but also illusions. Some panels made him feel he was falling into nothingness, others projected echoes of his own movements. His mind spun as he tried to plan a path through. "Remember," Lyra said, stepping aside. "Do not rush, observe, think, feel." Taking a deep breath, Eli stepped into the maze. Immediately, the mirrors seemed to react to him, forming paths that shifted unpredictably. He tried to apply human logic at first, memorizing patterns and angles, but quickly realized Zyphoran puzzles did not obey simple logic. He had to improvise. He paused, closed his eyes, and allowed himself to listen, to the subtle hum of energy around him, to the faint vibration under his feet. Slowly, he began to notice patterns in the reflections, moments when a panel's shimmer hinted at the correct direction. Step by step, he moved forward using intuition as much as thought. Hours seemed to pass. Eli lost track of time, but he did not give up. At one point, a particularly tricky section made him stumble, and he almost gave in to frustration. Then he remembered Lyra's words: observe, think, feel. He closed his eyes again, letting his instincts guide him rather than overthinking, and suddenly the maze opened before him. He emerged into the sunlight of the courtyard, breathless and exhilarated. Lyra was waiting, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she clapped. Impressive. Most humans fail within minutes. You relied not only on your mind but also on your spirit. That is rare. Eli bowed slightly, still catching his breath. I didn't know I could do it. Lyra smiled softly. Neither did I. Humans have more potential than most give them credit for. That is why I am intrigued by you. After a brief rest, Lyra led Eli to a training ground, a wide expanse of terrain with various obstacle courses, strange weaponry, and holographic targets. The next test, she said, is physical. Humans are not known for their agility or strength compared to Zyphorans, but cleverness can compensate for that. Eli felt a twinge of nervousness. He had trained in basic human defense techniques, but he was no warrior. Still, he followed her instructions carefully. The first obstacle involved balancing across floating platforms, some of which tilted or disappeared when stepped on. Eli's hands shook, and his feet faltered, but he focused on timing and observation, slowly making it across. Next came the holographic targets. They moved unpredictably, appearing and disappearing in rapid succession. Eli's accuracy surprised even himself, relying on intuition and quick thinking rather than raw strength. Each time he hit a target, Lyra's approving nod encouraged him further. Finally, the last obstacle was a simulated battle with Zyphoran guards. Eli had to anticipate their moves, dodge attacks, and use the environment to his advantage. At first, he stumbled repeatedly, but gradually he learned to combine human ingenuity with quick reflexes. The guards, though impressed, played their part strictly. They did not hold back, yet they did not harm him either. When he finished, panting and sweaty, Lyra approached, her eyes bright with admiration. You adapted. That is something even Zyphorans struggle to do. You think creatively, use what you have, and never give up. That is remarkable for a human. Eli shook his head in disbelief. I was just trying to keep up. Trying is enough if you never quit, Lyra said. Humans often underestimate themselves, but time and again, you prove resilience and ingenuity far beyond what others expect. That is why I am intrigued by you. The rest of the day passed with lessons in Zyphoran culture, diplomacy, and history. Eli listened intently, asking questions and demonstrating understanding. Lyra challenged him with ethical dilemmas, debates about strategy, and puzzles of thought. Each time, Eli applied human reasoning in ways that seemed unpredictable to Zyphorans but effective. As evening approached, they returned to the palace balcony, overlooking the city once more. The twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of pink and gold. Eli felt a sense of calm and accomplishment, but also anticipation. He knew the challenges were only beginning. Lyra stood beside him, her gaze on the horizon. You have done well today, she said softly, but the greatest tests are not puzzles or obstacles. They are trust, courage, and the choices you make when the world is uncertain. That is what will determine whether humans or you can truly walk beside Zyphora. Eli looked at her, his heart pounding. I want to try. I want to prove myself, not just for me, but for humanity. I want to show that humans can rise to any challenge. Lyra's eyes softened. And perhaps, she said, that is why I consider you remarkable. You are not just a human. You are a human willing to step into a world that fears and doubts you. That is rare indeed. The night deepened, and the stars shone with unusual brilliance. Eli felt the enormity of the galaxy pressing in on him, yet he no longer felt small. He had faced tests, proven himself, and gained the respect of a princess who could see beyond his species to his heart. As he prepared for bed that night, he thought of the puzzle of mirrors, the obstacle courses, and the lessons in ethics and diplomacy. He realized that every test had been designed not to show his weaknesses, but to reveal his strengths. Humans were clever, adaptable, and resilient, qualities that no alien could fully predict. And at the center of it all was Lyra, watching, guiding, and perhaps judging his worth not by his species, but by his courage and heart. Eli lay awake long into the night, staring at the glowing ceiling of his chamber, reflecting on the day's events. He felt a growing determination, a spark of pride in what humans could accomplish. He also felt a deep connection to Lyra, an understanding that transcended words. Something was forming between them, delicate but undeniable, built on respect, admiration, and mutual challenge. He whispered into the quiet room, almost to himself, almost as a vow, "I will not fail. I will rise to whatever challenges come, not just for myself, but for us, for humanity, for her." And so the first day of Eli's trials ended, not with victory or defeat, but with promise, a promise of adventure, growth, and the extraordinary path that awaited him. The galaxy, vast and full of wonders, had begun to recognize a simple truth: humans were not weak. Humans were clever, adaptable, and brave. And with courage, even a single human could change the course of worlds. The following weeks on Zyphora were unlike anything Eli Carter had ever experienced. Each day brought new challenges, new lessons, and new encounters that tested not just his mind and body, but his courage and spirit. He had passed the puzzle of mirrors and the physical trials, but Lyra had made it clear that the greatest tests were yet to come, tests of leadership, trust, and ingenuity in a galaxy that was far more dangerous than he had imagined. Eli had begun to feel at home in the palace, moving through its winding halls with more confidence. He had learned to anticipate Zyphoran protocols, to read subtle cues in conversation, and to navigate alien technology that often seemed impossible to understand. Still, despite his growing competence, he could not ignore the eyes that followed him, some curious, some skeptical, and some openly disapproving. Many nobles whispered among themselves, doubting the place of a human in the inner circle of their princess. Lyra, however, continued to treat him as an equal in thought and action. She involved him in strategic meetings, asked for his opinions on diplomacy, and even allowed him to witness a council session where disputes between planets were mediated. Eli realized that she did not simply want a companion. She wanted someone who could rise to the level of her people, someone who could think quickly, act decisively, and show courage in the face of uncertainty. One morning, alarms rang throughout the palace. Eli had never heard anything like it, deep, resonant tones that vibrated through the walls and floors. He rushed to Lyra's side in the command center, where holographic screens displayed star systems in chaos. Ships were disappearing in a remote sector, and intelligence reports indicated an organized attack by a hostile alien faction known as the Krithar Collective. Lyra's violet eyes were sharp with focus. "They are moving faster than expected," she said. "We must respond immediately." "Eli, I need your help. I want your perspective on how to protect the border systems and minimize casualties. I trust your judgment." Eli's heart raced. This was real danger, more than puzzles or obstacle courses. This was life or death, and humans were often underestimated in such situations. He swallowed his fear and began analyzing the data, combining human reasoning with the information provided by Zyphoran sensors. He suggested defensive maneuvers that leveraged speed, surprise, and clever use of the terrain of the asteroid belts surrounding the sector. Lyra listened intently, occasionally nodding. "Your thinking is unconventional," she admitted, "but effective. Humans see angles we often overlook." Eli felt a surge of pride. He had trained for moments like this in theory, but now he was making decisions that could save lives. Together, he and Lyra coordinated the Xiphoran fleets, issuing commands and adjusting tactics as the situation unfolded. The first encounter with the Crithar ships was intense. Their vessels were heavily armed and aggressive, but Eli noticed patterns in their movements that Xiphoran officers had not. He called out suggestions to redirect fleet formations and use decoy ships to lure the enemy into asteroid fields. The plan worked. Crithar ships collided or became trapped, giving the Xiphorans a significant advantage. Through hours of intense strategy and coordination, Eli's human perspective proved invaluable. The Xiphorans, initially skeptical of his involvement, began to respect his insight and ingenuity. Lyra stayed close, her presence a steady reassurance as they navigated the chaos. At one point, a stray Crithar fighter broke through the defenses, heading straight for the command center. Eli acted without hesitation, activating a defense protocol that saved the building and the lives inside. When the attack finally ended, the damage had been minimized, and the Crithar forces had retreated. Eli was exhausted, but a sense of accomplishment and relief washed over him. He had helped save lives, protect systems, and earn the respect of a civilization that had once doubted humanity. Lyra approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have done more than I expected, Eli," she said softly. "You have shown courage, intelligence, and adaptability. You are remarkable." Eli felt warmth in his chest. "I just did what I could," he replied, though he knew it was more than that. His actions had been human ingenuity in its purest form, quick thinking, adaptability, and courage under pressure. Over the following days, word of Eli's accomplishments spread throughout Xiphora. Humans were no longer seen merely as observers or diplomats. They were capable allies, capable of brilliance when trusted and tested. Eli walked through the palace with a new sense of confidence, aware that he had changed perceptions and opened doors for humanity in ways few had imagined possible. Lyra invited him to walk with her once more through the palace gardens. The alien flora glowed softly under the twin moons, casting gentle light on the path. Eli marveled at the beauty, but he was also aware of the weight of the moment. The Crithar threat was not gone, and tensions in the galaxy remained high. Yet for the first time, he felt that humans could make a real difference. "Eli," Lyra said, breaking the silence, "you have proven yourself in ways I could not have imagined. You have shown that humans are clever, brave, and capable of extraordinary things." Eli looked at her, his heart pounding. I just wanted to help," he said softly. Lyra's eyes softened. "Helping is enough when it comes from courage and heart. You have both." The moment stretched between them, filled with quiet understanding. Eli realized that his journey was not just about survival or achievement. It was about connection, trust, and shared purpose. Lyra had come to see him not as a human outsider, but as a partner, an equal in mind and spirit. Weeks passed, and Eli continued to train, learn, and assist in diplomatic missions. Each day brought new challenges: a dispute between neighboring planets, a natural disaster threatening a colony, a negotiation with a rogue faction. In every situation, Eli relied on human ingenuity, creativity, and empathy to find solutions. Each success reinforced the growing respect for humanity, and each challenge strengthened the bond between him and Lyra. One evening, they were called to a special ceremony in the palace hall. Nobles, ambassadors, and dignitaries from multiple species gathered to witness the recognition of Eli's contributions. Lyra spoke to the assembly, her voice resonating with authority and pride. This human, Eli Carter, has shown courage, intelligence, and heart beyond what many expected, she said. He has helped protect our people, guide our strategies, and demonstrate the true potential of humans. Today, we honor him not just as a guest, but as a trusted ally of SciFi. The crowd murmured, some skeptical, some impressed, but the message was clear. Humanity had earned a place of respect among the stars. Eli felt a surge of pride and gratitude, realizing that every test, every challenge, and every moment of courage had led to this recognition. After the ceremony, Lyra took Eli's hand. "You have proven more than anyone imagined," she said softly. "And now I want to ask you something." Eli's heart raced. "Yes." Lyra's gaze was steady, filled with warmth and affection. "Would you continue this journey with me, not just as a human ally, but as someone I trust, someone I choose to walk beside?" Eli swallowed hard, emotion swirling. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "I would be honored." The stars outside the palace windows shimmered as if celebrating their promise. Eli realized that his whispered wish, the words he had spoken on a balcony months ago, had not only changed his life, but had reshaped the perception of humanity across a galaxy. He had dared to speak honestly, to act bravely, and to trust in himself, and it had brought him here to this extraordinary moment. Together, they walked out onto the balcony, overlooking the city bathed in moonlight. The twin moons reflected off the crystal spires, creating a breathtaking panorama. Eli looked at Lyra, feeling the depth of connection and trust between them. He knew challenges would continue, threats, misunderstandings, and political complications, but he also knew that humans had proven themselves capable, and that he had found someone who saw him as he truly was. Lyra smiled, her hand resting lightly in his. "The galaxy is vast and full of danger," she said softly, "but together we can face it. Together we can shape the future." Eli nodded, feeling a surge of determination and hope. Yes, together. In that moment, under the twin moons of SciFi, humanity had risen. A human had stood shoulder to shoulder with alien royalty, demonstrating courage, ingenuity, and heart. And in doing so, he had not only earned respect but had forged a bond that transcended worlds. As they watched the stars shimmer in the night sky, Eli understood that this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, the galaxy would test them, and life would demand courage at every turn. But with trust, heart, and determination, humans could rise to meet any obstacle. And as Lyra turned to smile at him, Eli realized that his life had changed forever, not just because of love, but because he had dared to dream, dared to act, and dared to be human. For the first time, he truly believed that humanity belonged among the stars, not as observers or underdogs, but as capable, courageous, and extraordinary beings. And beside him, the princess who had first challenged him now stood as a partner, a friend, and perhaps something even more profound. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, filled with wonder, danger, and opportunity. And Eli Carter, once an ordinary human from the edge of the galaxy, stepped forward into the future with courage, heart, and the unshakable knowledge that humans could rise to any challenge.